So we understand the value of business analysis, and we've accepted the fact that it makes more sense to plan out our business analysis before we begin the work. However, we still haven't really tackled the scope of business analysis. How formal should this be? How much work should we put in, and how long should we expect business analysis to take? Well, when we look at this question, we have to first seek to create a balance in the scope of our planning and realize that if we come up with a scope that is too formal in nature, we're wasting time and money, and we're probably going to lead to revisions needing to take place later on based on the level of detail that we've determined is necessary. Here we might have a very large number of interviews and elicitation sessions set up with stakeholders. We might speak with a wide variety of people, way too many to properly catalog, or so many that we are capturing minutia that's not really vital to the underlying business needs. On the other hand, if we're too informal in nature, if we don't treat the planning process with enough respect, and if we don't leave ourselves enough time and resources for effective analysis to take place, then we suffer many of the same downsides as if we hadn't planned out our analysis at all. We won't understand what it is we're supposed to accomplish. We may not have stakeholders on board with our vision. We might not properly understand what their preferences and requirements might be and the valuable context that they bring to the table, and more. The project lifecycle can actually be very helpful in determining what the useful level of business analysis planning might be. When it comes to adaptive projects, our plans should evolve and adjust over time, and our focus should be on broad factors. Project scope is one of the ones we should tackle. What is it we think we're trying to accomplish in a broad sense? What are the requirements that we're seeking to fulfill and the needs that we're seeking to meet? What level of risk are we comfortable with as an organization and as a team? If the level of risk that we're willing to take on is fairly high, then that means we can be a little less formal with our business analysis and instead experiment and learn by doing along the way. In many project environments, this is not only something that's accepted, it's actively welcomed as part of the process of divining what that final solution should be by working on it in an iterative fashion. In other areas, we may want to seek to limit that risk by planning more and having a more cautious approach before we begin to put any pen to paper. Project complexity can also be a leading indicator here. In more complex projects, we're simply going to need more business analysis to take place in order to understand some of the extra elements that might be involved here, as opposed to a project that's more simple and straightforward in nature. In a predicted project environment, those plans are set up front, and little change should be expected from our initial plans, assuming we did a good job in the first place. Our elicitation begins with a very clear idea of what the project and business analysis parameters should be, and naturally that means that we'll be conducting our business analysis in a more formal nature than we would in a more adaptive environment.